Here we have, I'm just going to introduce you a little bit.
Yeah.
JL Holdsworth, professional power lifter, strength coach you're still at the University of Kentucky, right?
No, I actually, no, I haven't been there in a while. I have my own place in Columbus, the Spot Athletics
Yeah,
that I run.
Spot Athletics. Okay, I
Yeah.
thought you were doing both, but okay.
Nope.
And your current record is a 905-pound squat, 775-pound bench, and an 804-pound deadlift.
That is correct. Yeah, I actually, I haven't competed in powerlifting in a little while. I had an injury, so those lifts were all done a while ago. The gears changed quite a bit, bench shirts and things. Like when I did the 775, there was a handful of guys in the world who could do 8. Now it's a little bit different. There's a lot of guys pushing 1,000, but the gear's gotten a lot different.
Oh yeah, but I mean, so what? That's an impressive feat for anybody. I mean, anybody that's getting those type of numbers is
Yeah, I'm
strong as
honestly
hell.
probably the number I'm most proud of, strength-wise, that I've done is I've inclined 585. So that's probably the one that I like the most, just because it's different. But
Awesome. So on your website, Spot Athletics, you have your philosophy, and it says, "Have a large toolbox because if you only have a hammer, then everything becomes a nail." So
yeah, I mean, I see. You get this with guys in nutrition, training programs, strength coaches, whatever, personal trainers, whatever the case may be. They have one program, they print it off, they give it to everybody who walks through the door. And, if that person doesn't fit specifically what's going to work on that program, then, that person, if they're not good, then people go, they're not good. But if they've had a little bit of success and had some good athletes in whatever their arena is, well, they're great. And then if the program doesn't work, the person goes, oh, well, you weren't working hard enough. But, I don't think that's the case. I think I'm constantly trying to learn and evolve my system. What my system was, 15 years ago is a drop in the bucket compared to what my system is today. And I hope that 15 years from now, it's that much better as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of follow along the similar lines. It's like all training needs to be individualized to a certain respect, and so like that's one of the reasons why I've been trying to like get people together on my blog is just to kind of facilitate like there's many different ways of training to get the result you want, and everybody's going to have a different response to this stuff.
Well, yeah, I think the same training and nutrition wise, whether it's, you could be working with, it doesn't matter if it's a figure athlete or, Highland Games person or whatever it is. Everybody's going to react differently from a physical standpoint and nutritional standpoint to what you give them. And I think that, males to females, that changes as well. And I think that, it's ideal. It's funny, like my biggest population that I work with is 13 to 17-year-old volleyball player girls. That's like from a number standpoint, we work with, two national clubs and in a regional club. And so we have a ton of that population. What they need is a lot different than, let's say, what, my football players need or, some of my other athletes. So I think that people get too caught up in, especially now, everybody's trying to sell something online. So, it backs people into a corner to say, oh, this is my system and my system's the best. I mean, obviously, everybody should think their system's the best. Otherwise, why would you do it if you didn't think it was the best way? Like, you know. So I don't have a problem with people thinking it's the best. I just don't like people say everything else is bad because,
Yeah.
really, I think that what you may do on bench might help greatly. And if I did the same program, it wouldn't. In that, though, I think there are certain rules that every program must adhere to. And it's like break every single diet in the world down to eat whole foods. No, don't eat processed foods. No diet, no matter if it's our backloading or whatever the case may be. No diet says eat processed foods. So you can break every diet down to eat whole foods. Training from a standpoint, it depends on what your goals are. If your goals to get stronger, then every program built on strength boils down to pick up heavy shit and get strong. bodybuilding program, obviously, it's a little different, but all those programs really boil down to creating a bigger fiber diameter size. That's it. So it's whatever method works for you to get a bigger diameter fiber size to get, bigger muscle. So it's really just about a stimulus and for bodybuilding, or in strength, it's about picking up heavy stuff. But I think people get too caught up in this is the only way because it's my way. But
Yeah.
I think those people in the long run will be able to help a limited population, and I think people that have big toolboxes will be able to help a lot bigger cross section of a population.
Yeah. And it always helps from learning from other people, because your experience is far outweighs my own experience, and you know, from all across the board, just due to who you've trained under, where you've been, what you've done, and my experience is obviously going to be a little bit different from your experience because I'm used to like military forms of training, which I love powerlifting, but there's no way I could ever do it because I have to sustain a certain amount of aerobic fitness that is mandatory that you have to do.
Well,
And
I think I guess I think in that I would say you're confusing though. You can power lift now. You could go
but
do
I'm
a
not
meet?
gonna there's no way I'm gonna be able to like be an elite level power lifter
It's
in
going to be harder. You could, but it's going to be much harder. Like right now, I tore my bicep about a month ago or so. I had surgery, so there's a lot of things I can't do right now. There's a lot of things I can do. Can I do some things at 100%? No, but I can still do them. Same thing for you. Like you can do a powerlifting meet, but can you get big and fat and bloated? No, you can't. But there's a lot of powerlifters that maintain, and who do it. Now, I will say the ones that do maintain, a lean and a higher cardiovascular base, and do it at an elite or professional level is lower than those that don't. But it's possible. It's just it becomes harder the more aerobic base that to me though, I think like, and this is something that I've long believed in, and really like, Louis used to say this, and it's really true. The stronger you are, the better shape you have to be in. Now, obviously, if a guy's squatting 1,300 pounds, like it's a different kind of shape than running 2 miles. But you think about the volume as you get stronger, the volume keeps getting higher and higher and higher. So if you're not in decent shape, you won't be able to recover from those workouts. So, I think that like at my strongest, my warm up, I would drag sled for about a half mile, do a bunch of glute ham raises, a bunch of abs, and that was my warm up. And, I think that you have to have, as you get stronger, you have to have a high work capacity. Otherwise, you can't handle the loads and the volume that you have to do to get stronger. But obviously, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like training, like I've been, before I did the Mighty Mitts competition at the Arnold, which is a grip competition where they invite, the guys with the strongest grip in the world in to compete at the Arnold.
yeah, I just watched that video actually. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it would have been a lot more impressive if I hadn't torn my bicep a week before that. So
We always got limitations, right?
that's what you get for trying to pick up a car and move it because it's in your way. But yeah, I mean, I've been training like jiu-jitsu, basically MMA, like striking jiu-jitsu and stuff, getting ready for MMA fight. And, I had to drastically change my training because it wasn't about being big and strong. It was about, can I be in a good enough shape? And the strength isn't as, obviously you don't need to bench 800 pounds to be able to punch them in the face and knock them out. There's a point of diminishing returns, and you have to have that anaerobic base to be able to fight. So I understand exactly, where you're coming from. I think that you can still power lift. You're just, like you said, you're not going to be basically, I don't know, an old saying, if you chase two rabbits, you get none. So, if you're like, hey, I'm going to be the best power lifter in the world, then you're probably not going to have the best aerobic condition in the world.
Yeah,
It's just not,
exactly.
you
And
could,
I kind of fall along the tier of being like more of a hybrid trainer. Like I like so many different things that I kind of have to spread out through a lot of different variables in training and try to find the mix that works the best to like, you know, increase on all the weak points, but like, you have to focus on certain areas to get better at them. So, I'm always pursuing strength and hypertrophy, but I also have to keep up on these other things. And that's kind of what my philosophy relies around is like, don't necessarily focus on one thing, but try to improve on the things you really suck at and get them up to a good level. And then, if you want to power lift, so to say, make that one of your main focal points, but don't neglect those other areas.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that is, interesting right now is there's been more because of like CrossFit coming along. I think like it's done some good things where people actually go like, my facility, I rent space inside a larger facility. So there's a lot of tournaments, like volleyball tournaments, things inside there. And we'll be doing stuff with athletes like squatting or deadlifting. And like women will come up and be like, oh, is that the CrossFit stuff? Like, yeah, they invented squatting. So like but the good part about that is that like before people never understood like those main movements were like something like, oh, like, only like those big guys over in the corner do that. So like cleans, the Olympic lifts, which I think are great. Like the power lifts, all the main just basic full body like free weight movements are, getting, I guess, marketed better. So the general population is, getting exposed to them. And I think that's great because, the marketing giants are really the douchebag box gyms that are like, oh, come here and eat donuts and it's okay that you're fat and weak and whatever. And like, that is okay that they're fat and weak because when the world ends, then I know that they'll die and then it'll be a better population. But for what we do and like my athletes, like that's not the population that I want to deal with. Like, I mean, so it's interesting that, like I like that, the thing about CrossFit or the knock on CrossFit is like basically you be extremely, you're average at everything. And it is true. It's like what you're talking about. Like, you can't be an elite level power lifter and be able to have the best 2-mile time in the world. Yeah. Like that's just not going to happen. They're two different goals. So like CrossFit's a competition where you can have a decent powerlifting total and a decent 2-mile time and you do good at that competition. So, I mean, there's things obviously in their programming that I think are very bad, but I think that in general, I know people who run gyms and they do their own programming and it's great. They just produce good athletes that are good at that as a competition. But I think it's, for me, I mean, I said I doing some fighting stuff just because I like that. Now that I've torn my bicep, I basically decided that I don't want any more stupid injuries. So I'm just going back to just doing strict strength sports. So like for me, it's a sacrifice. Like I know obviously I'm not going to have like abs and be in great cardiovascular shape per se. Not that it'll be horrible, but it's not going to be anywhere near like doing a 10-minute, rolling for 20 minutes doing jiu-jitsu. Like not going to happen. But, it's funny, a good buddy of mine, he said to a guy one time, it was like, hey, I just want to have abs and blah, 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 and lifting at the gym. He said to him, how many guys do you know that have abs? And the guy's like, well, lots of people. And he goes, how many people do you know that can bench 600 pounds raw? And he was like, you? So in my book, it's a whole lot cooler 600 pounds than it is to have abs. So
yeah, it's really all about what you want out of it. So
it's what, I have a buddy who's, he does a lot of like kinesiology stuff and like applied kinesiology stuff, and he's more of like on the therapist side of things, and so he's like, oh, I want to feel good and I want to feel this, and like in my world of strength, like for me, like so you look at like shirted numbers, like raw strength hasn't gone up that much in the last 20 years. There's 3 guys in the world who've ever benched 700 pounds. So, like, for me, that would be, like, the ultimate. A 700-pound raw bench is, like, the ultimate strength feat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's 3 guys who've ever done it in the world. So, for me, like, when I talk to him, he's all about ultimate, like, being healthy and being fit and those kind of things. Like, really, if you're going for a goal like that, your goal is to feel good enough not to die while attaining your goal. And that's about your goal, because that's really about. And, you know, it's a short term, like you feel like crap and like you can't breathe and walking up a flight of stairs, you get winded, but you're trying to attain a goal. And it's funny because people make fun of that, but the sacrifice that it takes to do that at that level is just as hard as dieting down and getting to 4% body fat, you know, still a discipline. Like one of my guys right now, he powerlifts and he trains athletes for me. He's trying to gain weight. So every day he comes in with a large pizza from like the hot and ready from like little. He's been doing it for like a month. Every single day he comes in with one, and he can't leave till he finishes it. And so someone said to him the other day, like, "Oh my God, aren't you getting sick of that?" And he was like, "I can't stand it." But he's trying to get as many calories as he can. It's a different type of discipline. It's a different goal. But whatever you do, when you do it at a top level, at an elite or professional level, and you're trying to be the best in the world, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's whatever, you're trying to be the best person, you know, in your battalion or whatever you're trying to do, like it takes sacrifice and discipline. It just changes based on your goals. And I think that's where everybody, you know, and I differentiate strength sports from like bodybuilding and those things, because strength sports are absolute. You know, either you pick it up and you beat me, or I pick it up and I beat you. Whereas, like, you know, aesthetic sports like bodybuilding or, you know, bikini or whatever it is, like, it's all about, like, oh, I like his smile or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I always, in natural bodybuilding, I was always torn between just being like, you know, this is so much work for so little gain. And
it's for me. I mean, look, like I respect the discipline of it and all the, you know, the training and the dieting and everything. But like, I think especially in the strength sports, like whether, and it goes through anything when it deals with iron, like everybody should just respect each other for what their goal is and what their discipline and what their dedication is. Instead, you know, you got bodybuilders ripping on powerlifters because powerlifters are fat, and, you know, bodybuilders are gay or whatever. Like everybody wants to rip on each other. But like, it really, at the end of the day, we're all just kind of trying to achieve the best in whatever our chosen, you know, sport is. And I think, like, you know, Olympic lifting's a big one. Like, you know, the Olympic lifting, the community per se, or like a lot of the people, you know, on powerlifters, or powerlifters rip on them. And it's everything. Everybody just wants to do it. It's hard. It's funny. It's hard. Like, we have such a small community. It'd be nice if everybody got along a little better, but that'll never be the case because everybody's got egos. But
I disagree. I disagree. I think if more people have an open mind like you and I do, they'll start coming around. And I think people are realizing that, you know, we all have those different goals and we're all working towards the betterment of society as a whole. You know, you train people to get better, I train people to get better. We focus on individual goals and trying to get people what they want out of their bodies.
well,
So,
I think, you know, like one of the things, like the military training, I think, you know, is just so far behind like what really should be happening. I mean, it's awful, but, you know, it's a good example though, because it's like society, like in a whole, like everything's going to be way behind like where the top people are, you know what I mean? So it takes a long time for things to change. And I just see, man, there's so much fighting, and the strength sports do a good job. Like strongmen, I think, you know, and powerlifters, I think that all gets along, you know, grip sport, everybody gets along in Highland Games. But like Olympic lifting, man, it's tough because it's in the Olympics. None of the other ones are. So there's just like, it just seems like constant like infighting. So, but
yeah.
we'll
I do see your point. I do see your point.